Welcome back. I'm dressed a little more casual today, unlike Lua. I'm Angel Millar, author of The Three Stages of Initiatic Spirituality and The Path of the Warrior Mystic, among other books. And I'm speaking with Lua Valentia, author of numerous books on chaos magic and the founder of the specular system. And we are talking about the law of balance.
Okay, so today we're gonna share some slides with you. It's gonna be a little bit of a master class here. And for those who don't know, I'm a huge fan of Neville Goddard, and he talks a lot about several laws, common laws, and the first one we're going to talk about is the law of balance. It has everything to do with a recent video Angel launched about the free fires, and you mentioned that usually since the old days we have divided ourselves in three. And here's an example of how we can see the whole of ourself, which is mind, spirit, and body. And it's very important that we maintain this concept that we are actually free and they are connected to each other. But before we continue, could you please tell us a little bit about the free fires, for instance, that you mentioned in your last video, because I'd like to connect and where this
Sure.
concept of free of looking at
Hmm.
ourselves this way came from.
Yeah, so the three fires I mentioned is actually a ritual from the rite of Memphis and Mizraim, which is an obscure paramasonic rite, but it's actually a very influential one as well. William Wynne Westcott of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was a member. Aleister Crowley received the Memphis Mizraim rituals and took what he regarded as the best of those rituals and infused them into the Ordo Templi Orientis rituals. And they, in many respects, do form the basis of the Ordo Templi Orientis as well. Also, Theodore Royce, the co-founder of the OTO, was a member of Memphis and Mizraim. But in that rite, there is a degree called the Sublime Guardian of the Three Fires, and the three fires in that ritual are on three altars, and they represent mind, body, and spirit. I found this pretty interesting. I don't think Mircea Eliade, the anthropologist, knew of this degree, but in his book, The Forge and the Crucible, he talks about the craftsperson or the artisan and or the blacksmith in particular, and the warrior and the shaman being all masters of fire, as if there are three types of fire. Obviously, the fire of the forge, the fire of battle, and the fire of the magician, which, when we think about the sort of healing energy, for example, this energy that the magician can create. Yeah, so that is the three fires. But if we can also liken it, and I do in my book, the three stages as well, to liken it to, for example, Plato's concept of the three parts of the soul, the rational part, the spirited part, and the appetite. And even Bishop Alfred, Anglo-Saxon bishop, talks about there being a human soul having the rational part, memory, and willer in Old English, having the purpose, drive, and aim, a telos.
Perfect. So we have it three parts, and that's why it's so important for us to have this concept very clear. And now we're gonna talk about what is the law of balance. When we talk about Neville, Neville Goddard and other writers, we must also mention Carl Jung, of course. And people they tend to think it is very simple, right? Everything regarding manifestation is so simple. All you have to do is think, feel, and receive.
Hmm.
Whereas the more we study about psychology, we understand that we need to balance the dark and light that we all have. And this is not as simple as one might think. But the good news is the more we study and know ourselves, more we can manifest with ease. So for instance, Carl Jung, he talked a lot about balancing the opposite of anima, animus, and you talked a lot about this in your upcoming book.
Yes, that's right.
uh,
Yes.
I, Shadows and the self-conscious and unconscious. Let's start with the anima and animus that you talk a little bit in your book, upcoming book,
hmm
because I really like the way you put in your book, please.
Well, I talk mostly about an ancient Norse concept of the Fylgja, which is it's always portrayed as a woman. Well, there are animal Fylgja or spirits as well, but there is a particular type of Fylgja, which is a woman or a supernatural woman who appears to a man at the end of life and takes him uh, beyond life into whatever realm is next. But they can also appear in dreams as well, and so sometimes she's referred to as a Drom Connor or Drown Connor, meaning a dream woman, and there is also a dream man as well, a Dram Matha, and these are sort of spiritual beings that appear in our dreams, but typically there's only one. There is a saga where it talks about these competing dream women, a good dream woman and a bad dream woman, and they're sort of competing against each other, and one of them wants to take the man after death into this particular uh, sort of mansion that they will live in, and it seems to be a sort of man and wife in a sense, husband and wife. So there's this sort of extremely close bond between these, between the being and the human. But the Fugya,
Just one
yeah,
second to
yeah,
cut it a little bit. I
yeah.
think nowadays, in nowadays language, we would refer to the nightmare woman as the karmic. For you who enjoy reading and listening to tarot reading, the karmic one would be the nightmare woman, and the dream woman, we would call her the divine feminine. Just so we, for the people who enjoy this more this tarot oracle reading language, to be on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, the only other thing, well, one other thing that would be worth mentioning about this Thulgia is that she's directly tied to a person's luck and increases that person's luck. Or if that person acts cowardly or immorally or in some way that's offensive to the Thulgia, she can detach herself from that person and attach herself to another or just abandon him. And then his luck will collapse and he'll probably die. So.
We don't want that.
No, we don't want that.
So back here, um, the shadow and the self. So in occultism, we often talk about know yourself, know your shadow, and the shadow is not often something that is bad per se, but for instance, something that we just ignore. Let's say if you are a more masculine, what is called the masculine woman, and you always wanted to be the boss, but um, you grew to be very feminine, etc. So sometimes you can just ignore this part of yourself and try to adapt to what is expected of you. And the more you ignore, the further away you are from individuation, which is becoming yourself, your true self, integrating all these parts of you. And it's a process that it is important for your manifestation, to understand, to do the shadow work, to understand your shadow work, and also project the right persona you want to project as well to the world. But more of that is to integrate them. So whatever it is that you hide, your anger, the parts of the sexuality, your ambition, your power, the envy you feel, everything that you haven't faced yet, you know, this can be a force that drags you down if you don't do the shadow work. And it's very important that that we do that as well, and that we integrate this parts of the shadow, the persona, that we integrate the masculine and the feminine, that we create all of this balance within us. And also, when we talk about this process, and of course, we're going to say, go to, if you want to be a whole being and understand yourself and be a master of your mind, go to therapy, do the work as you can. To become yourself is not just to project, but also to understand and try to harmonize your unconscious and your conscious, and not to be afraid of this. So people thinking that to be whole is to remove imperfection. To be whole is to become perfect, not to break down or anything. And this, for me, when we're talking about manifesting, it has to do a lot with toxic positivism, right? So if you could talk a little bit about what is so toxic in the only think positive all the time, is that you are
Hmm.
rejecting the shadow work, the dirty work that we need to do to become whole.
Right. Yeah. Well, that is true. Yes. Well, if you don't mind, I might take it back to a metaphor that might help us a lot to understand balance before I get to that. And that is historically during the medieval period, uh, people dealing with money would weigh coins on scales. And so if you had a gold coin, they would weigh it against a little gold bar of the same monetary value. And you might ask yourself, well, why would they do that? Because it says on the gold coin how much it's worth. And of course, the reason for weighing gold coins on a scale to see how much they're worth is you want to make sure that it's really gold and that it's not some other metal that is coated with gold. And so that's why you weigh it. If it's weighed against the same amount of gold that and the scales go up or down and out of balance, then it's a fake. And I think what that tells us is balance is inherently about two things, and that is it real or authentic, and what value does it have? And in our lives, I think we think of balance as often well, I stuck to my diet for 3 weeks, so I'm going to indulge in this really, really bad food. Or I exercised yesterday, so I'm not getting out of bed today, and I'm just gonna, you know, waste my time. Or, I put a lot of effort into my business, so I'm taking a week off. And and so there's always this sort of back and forth. The scales are always going up and down. And in terms of toxic positivity or always being positive, is that it doesn't have it's not authentic at a certain point, and it doesn't have any value for you. And for things to have value, we need to look at them objectively. So,
Yes.
for example, I may have mentioned this before, but I used to have a friend or acquaintance, and I knew them for a couple of years. And at one point, she said, "Oh, I have my own fashion company." And I thought, "Wow, how didn't I know that she has her own fashion company? That's incredible." And I asked her about it, and she said, "Well, about 4 years ago or 5 years ago, she had, created a couple of things." And then she hasn't done anything since then, but that's fine because the universe is going to deliver at a certain point. And so I think in a way that's toxic positivity or one expression of toxic positivity. It's all good and the universe is going to deliver and I don't have to do any work whatsoever to make it happen, unlike every other person on the planet who has ever achieved anything. And So we can ask ourselves, is it authentic? No, it's not authentic because if you really want something, you have to work for it. You have to put in some effort. If it's something that you really want to achieve and it's a big thing, you need to put in the effort. So it's not real for a start. And then is it of value? Well, it's of no value, or it's even worse than valueless. It's actually taking away from you because if you didn't have that belief that, well, I'm just waiting for the universe to deliver, could be tomorrow, could be 25 years from now, you would actually do the work. So this sort of toxic positivity, as you're calling it, or it's often called, is a kind of mental junk food that is keeping us alive and keeping us going, but it's actually very unhealthy for us. So I think that,
Absolutely.
so that's how we can evaluate things. Is it in regards to balance? Is it real and does it have value for us?
Absolutely. And why does it matter? Because if we don't try to become whole, we're gonna allow the shadow to run the show, The more we suppress, the more we will explode. If we don't deal with the anger issues or the sadness, repressed sadness, one day we just break. That's why we now have so many people saying they are burned out with work. So also we talked about the wounded feminine in another video. We talk about also the wounded masculine. If we don't become whole, we're gonna just project our issues into others. We're gonna suppress our sexuality. And if we don't understand the voices in our unconscious mind, the programs in our conscious mind, our rituals may backfire because what we want is split from the programming. So we first need to reprogram our mind. Now, if we're whole, we understand that our words have power. We can actually access the archetypes without fear, and we can become our own authority because we believe in ourself, and our word has value. So again, we come here to the spirit, mind, and body, and it has everything to do with what you just said about work. Because, if I just think in a positive way, I'm ignoring the other parts of this. I'm not doing anything in the world, and I'm putting the work in the world. Now, if I integrate everything and I do all this work here, so in regards to the mind, I do the shadow work, I do journaling, I do therapy, I reprogram my mind with subliminals. These affect directly the body. Why? Because if I have a weak mind, this can manifest in my body with our skin, our body weight can fluctuate, etc., etc. So many disease nowadays, they are closely related to our mind. Now, if we put the work, for instance, we do rituals with servants, thought forms, and also, of course, we do the actual work itself. We are connecting again with everything. And if everything we eat, everything we smell, everything we touch, the way we exercise, the way we move our body, also connects everything together. So yes, it has to do with embodying, and Neville Goddard says this a lot, embodying who you truly are, the best version of yourself, becoming whole, like Jung said. So again, with the occult part of it, we need to understand the laws as within, so without. We're going to talk a lot about this. And as above, so below. The world, what is manifestation? Is manifesting, projecting our inner self. What we think we are is what we see in the world around us. What we allow to be done to us is what is how our mind is organized. The more we understand this, that we are mirrors to our outer reality mirrors our inner state, the more we can actually manifest. Again, always taking into consideration the mind, the body, the spirit, always taking into consideration what can be done in these three parts of ourselves. So if we are centered, if we are clear, if we understand our value, we're not going to accept less than what we are. So when we think about Hermeticism, we understand this concept in the occult, because as within, so without, as above, so below. Whatever it is that is truly happening within our minds and our spirits and our imagination, it's what is happening also in the astral and in our lives. So the more we understand these concepts, truly understand, the more we apply it, the more we can change our lives for real. So for instance, you tend to attract situations that mirror what is suppressed within you. So if you haven't dealt with your anger, life will call you for conflict. Now, if you are more peaceful, you tend to attract peaceful people, because angry people will repel you, right? So this is very interesting thing about trying to balance your energy, trying to balance your perception of things. If you want a more peaceful life, try to be peaceful within yourself first. And of course, this is very difficult. It's not very simple, but we can work within it. Now, one thing though, some people, they really rely only in the subliminals meditations without the rituals, the structure. It causes imbalance, right? We need to take an approach. And one thing you said is very important as well, because it's not about, oh, I did a diet for 3 days and I'm gonna overeat for 3 days. No, instead of doing the extremes, try having a balanced diet every day. So, daily check-ins. Are your actions reflecting your desires? For instance, you want to save more, but then every time you check an ad, you click on the ad and you buy something you don't need. So come on, this is imbalance, right? Is your inner world cleaned? Again, for journaling, shadow work, and also clarity. Oh no, you're very confused. You don't know what you want. If you don't know what you want, you're not going to manifest. I'm sorry. That's the truth. And also, your routine is very important. Your diet, your rest, your movement, your beauty. And it is something I really like about your books, Angel, because you often touch on this importance of having a clear routine,
Yeah.
especially in your upcoming book, because
Yeah.
the world is chaotic, but you
Yes.
can improve your harmony.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's the irony, right? To navigate chaos and to be able to, not be taken down by it and even be able to control it a little bit and make it work for you, you actually have to live a pretty orderly life and get your own life and your own self in order. So, well, I was going to mention the mind, body, spirit in relation to balance because I think there's something we haven't touched upon that much. And the first slide is a sculpture by Franz von Sturck of an Amazon warrior holding or throwing a spear. And we tend to think, and I already gave the example of balance as being related to the scales, which is completely true. But there, we need balance balance manifests in other ways, right? And of course, the spear is something that we thrust forward, but you have to have it balanced, right? She's balancing that spear completely parallel to the ground. And if she was holding it at the end, it would just fall down. It would be impossible to throw. And even a sword, people involved in magic, know about the symbolism of the sword, but very few people actually understand a sword. Why does it have a pommel on the end of the handle? It's to balance the weight of the blade, because if it didn't have that, it would drag it down. So you're able to maneuver it much more easily with this extra weight on the end, balancing the blade, the weight of the blade. If we think about mind, body, spirit in the same way, maybe we can alternate these to kind of figure out what we should do or what decision we should make. So if we think mind, body, spirit, if we put body in the middle, almost like the hand that's holding the spear, we have mind and spirit on either side. We can think, my mind wants my rational intelligence wants this, but my spirited side, my attitude, my desires wants this other thing, and it can be bound. Is it good for the body, for example? Is it going to make me feel good? How am I going to feel? Not just in regards to physical health, but how is my heart going to feel, emotionally? And then we can kind of rotate that, so we can put, say, spirit in the middle with body on one side and mind on the other. So am I doing something that is primarily for my physical desires or physical repulsion or fear, or am I doing it primarily for my mind? And are these things balanced? Let's say, well, body and mind. I have a feeling of fear, let's say, but is my mind saying something else, that, well, the fear is justified or not justified, for example. So I think we can look at these almost like a kind of rotating balance, and figure out what's going on in life. That might be one way of looking at things as we go through our daily life and our life every day.
That's perfect. Energetic hygiene. We are going to do videos about this later, but clear our energy, protect, recalibrate, everything that you said. And also stop these extremes, overeating, then over dieting, oscillating between overwork and collapse. This is all imbalance. So
Yes,
let's
absolutely.
do, yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, that's right. And nature has its cycles. I was just making a video about this, so fruits appear on the tree, then they die, the leaves are gone, everything. And but so, and we ourselves are a little bit like that, going up and down. But to be able to navigate the natural world of chaos, the world of chaos that's completely unnatural, the urban environment, we want to be a little more steady and even, and incorporating balance in sense of you're not going to these extremes, right? Not having some extreme diet, then extreme eating extremely badly for us. Not working 18 hours for several days and then not doing anything for a week because you're burned out. We need to be a little more integrated, or have things integrated into our daily lives a little more. And again, because we want to be authentic, and we want to have value in our life. At a certain point, overeating is not giving us value. Overworking, which usually means you're no more productive than if you'd stopped hours earlier, that's not giving you value as well. So yeah, I think to have things more integrated into our lives, and to not be going to extremes and up and down, is a much better way to go, and much more effective ultimately.
Definitely. So journaling, I really love that. Sometimes we feel things we ignore or we are ashamed, but we should at least write it down, at least try to understand where does this come from. Dream work as well, understand our inner symbols. And so many people they ask me, oh, what does this dream mean, whatever. But it's your inner symbol to the code, your inner myth to the code. Because, you know, the serpent doesn't mean the same thing that it, for me, that it does for you. So when it appears in a dream, it depends on how you perceive it. And
Yeah.
also using the mirror as a potent portal for you to communicate with all the parts of yourself.
Yeah. Yes. Or two minor points there. One is you mentioned a serpent as an example, as a thing in a dream that can be interpreted, and it's different. My interpretation of a serpent is different to yours, but also our own interpretation is always changing, right? If I've only ever seen images of a serpent in books on, say, alchemy, and then I go to a zoo and I realize something about a serpent I'd never had occurred to me, and I dream about it after. It, it's not necessarily the alchemical interpretation that I should go with. Maybe it's this new thing that I've just discovered. So even our own
You,
understanding of things changes.
yeah, you changed my perception of unicorns, for instance.
Did I?
Yes, you did.
I'm not sure how. This was
You
not
did
intentional.
in a conversation,
Okay.
because I you explained to me why they are magical, and I understood, and now I see them as magical creatures.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
very interesting. Um,
Yeah.
Another thing that's very important is self-honesty, you being true to yourself. I understand we all have persona. We're all, you know, acting all the time in society, but it's important that we can drop it, at least when we are alone or with someone close to us. And also creative practice like drawing, dancing, writing. You know, Austin Spare would do that all the time. He would draw with his eyes closed and all of that, trying to understand what his unconscious was saying.
Yeah.
And now I want to touch on something that is very fringe occult. And this is, I actually want your opinion about this, and this is very woo woo. This is, you know, kind of like a conspiracy theory. But for those who believe in karma, or at least in retribution, or, you know, actions have consequences, you often ask yourself, okay, if karma is real, why some things the elite do, or, you know, those in power, whatever,
Hmm.
why they seem not to receive any karma from their actions, or they are always on power, or, you know, what is happening with politics, etc.
Yeah.
And so the fringe occult conspiracy theory says that consent is the key to erase karma. And I want to bring this to you because it's important. It took me years to understand this, to understand how we enable people around us to siphon our energy, to become
Yeah.
hell on earth. You know, there is that
Yes.
saying, hell are all the
Yes.
people.
Yeah. I
And
do.
it's through consent.
Mm.
Why? Because we have a low self-concept. We're going to talk about self-concept in the video of the law of assumption. And we allow them unconsciously or
Hmm.
consciously
Hmm. Yeah.
to use us, sometimes
Yeah.
abuse us, or behave in
Yeah.
other ways. And we allow ourselves to become victims.
Yes.
So if you truly want retribution to work, we all collectively need to stop being enablers of narcissists, abusers, whatever it is. And this is start, for instance, when someone crosses a boundary, a line, and many people don't even know they are allowed to have boundaries. Many people don't even
Yeah.
know they're allowed to say no because they think they are victims of the circumstances.
Mhm.
So, would you like to say anything about this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of the reasons why people can take advantage of other people often is well, they play on and prey upon our noble beliefs and intentions, right? They people who do this habitually, who are, narcissistic or psychopathic or whatever it may be, they make sure to look for people that they can manipulate because those other people have, good values or are understanding. And then, of course, they will often play upon our emotions by, doing something atrocious and then presenting themselves as the victim. Well, if it wasn't for their childhood or whatever it may be, and then they will increase their bad behavior over time and make us more and more used to it. And so before you know it, of course, someone is acting absolutely crazy, and it usually explodes in some moment. But there's been a long path to get there because these people make us used to their behavior. They combine it with all sorts of excuses. They portray themselves as the victim whenever they're victimizing other people. And, especially if it's, say family or friends, we obviously want to believe, or our default is usually to believe our family or friends. But, you know, these people exist within our family and our friends as well sometimes.
Let's go a little bit further into this.
Sure.
So, according to, and why is this? Why I'm talking about karma? Because it's balance, right? It's all about restoring balance in the
Yes.
universe. That's why many of us believe in karma. So, if someone warns you, let's say if someone says to you, I'm gonna end your life, even subtly, and you accept or ignore it, you are complicit. And I want to make this very clear. Because why? Because the elite sometimes, allegedly, reveals their intentions through media, through art, films, rituals, political speech, whatever, right? And people, they can receive these with apathy or even approval, or they just think it's a meme or something very far away from their lives. And they laugh, forget, they sometimes defend whatever it is. So they're giving consent. They're giving consent all the time. And all the
Yeah.
time, for instance, one thing very clear is with how we are being monitored, and I'm not trying to be paranoid, but it is the truth. We all
Yeah.
are being constantly monitored and listened to with our electronics, and we
Yeah.
literally click on terms of services and say I consent. So we sell our data, we sell everything we do, where we are, etc., etc. And then we complain, oh, they're reading our thoughts and sending us ads, whatever. Of course they are. Your devices have microphones. Every device nowadays has GPS, and even if yours don't, for example, they can triangulate with others around you. So it's very easy to identify you. It's very easy to have a profile of you, and it is even easier to manipulate you if you are unbalanced, if you don't know who you are, if you're not becoming whole, if you don't know your shadows, they know more about you than you know about yourself. So what do you expect? You're consenting to everything through your device. So this is how they use the occult, the laws of cause and effect, in their favor. And that's why I don't usually like using the word karma, because it is so easy to manipulate karma. It is actually pathetic. It's so easy to balance karma. And that's why the elite is, for instance, I will give you one example, right? You see many people who have lots of money giving money away to charity, but it's actually a loophole, whereas they have their charity organization, and that organization, yeah, might be doing good, excellent, but is also paying way less taxes than it should probably. So there are several loopholes like this. The more you study the occult, the more you understand how it works. And of course, the problem with this, before we close this video about balance, it is the paranoia, because people understand this and they start reading about something called decoding. And as someone who loves semiotics, and also I enjoy decoding, if you go too deep into this, you start becoming paranoid. And with this, bringing this fringe knowledge to you, I am not incentivizing you to go to this particular rabbit hole. Yes, follow the white rabbit, but not so deep that you lose yourself in the middle. And also never follow anything that brings you fear. So what do I recommend to you is to understand when you are enabling behaviors that you don't want to enable in your relationships, in your family, in your circle. Stop enabling, stop accepting, and also withdraw consent. So if you are unhappy with anything, just say it aloud, even within your prayers. I do not consent to this. Like that, for instance, I do not consent to war. I do not consent to anything that you don't agree with. Do not normalize war. I know it became a meme and people start normalizing bombs falling and people dancing, whatever. This is to desensitize you. So you just see everything from a screen and everything is close and far away at the same time. So I do not consent with any of these. Say it out loud. And just the last thing that is also very common when we talk about balance is this map of consciousness here. And here we see two paradigms, the survival paradigm and the spiritual paradigm. And every time you are unsure, try to find yourself here. I want you to know that the majority of the religions, the majority of the narratives right now, the media narrative, everything around you is trying to keep you here. Keep you here. Shame, guilt, apathy, grief, or fear. They really want to keep you here, and sometimes desire so you can buy more things. Okay? So, all right. Not all of us are going to be peaceful when we are bombarded with media news about war or the possibility of war. But try as much as possible to move yourself further along this line here. So if you are right now feeling fear, try to be courageous despite of the fear. So don't let any of this here to define who you are. Any tips for balance yourself, Angel, that you practice in your life?
Well, I think the thing that we need to do is step back from everything and trying to evaluate it unemotionally. I think far too many people get entangled in things because of emotions, and also not because of their values, even, but because they side with a particular group or gang. I noticed that depending on who is in power politically, values tend to change or swap over, or things that someone believed passionately in a year ago when everybody else believed in it, they now believe the opposite. And there's no consistency because people are sucked into things emotionally and not rationally, even though they think that they are rational. So I think we need to take a step back, evaluate, is this really what I believe? Why do I believe it? And yeah, and trying to be authentic to ourselves rather than always being supportive of a particular side or a particular political gang or whatever it may be, or religious gang.
I absolutely agree with it. And for me personally, what I do when I see something I don't agree with is that I say aloud, I do not consent with this. And I know my limits and my boundaries. And if I can't impose them, let's say, I try my best to remove myself from the situation. It's a journey. It takes some times.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
also another thing is journaling, as I said, subliminals to reprogram your mind, and meditate is also very important. And something
Yeah.
that I took from your book as well is martial arts, which I haven't
Hmm.
started yet, but I want to, so I can, balance better the masculine and the feminine, and also the aggression part, which it's very important, I think.
Yeah, for certain.
So that was it for the law of balance. The next video is the law of assumption. See you next week. Bye bye.